Elvis was very shy when I first met him. When I first met him,
was it Sun Studio? Where was it?
Sun Studio in Memphis there. Dewey Phillips was a disc jockey, and his brother Sam Phillips on the station. So I used to go out to the studio and...
It begins with silence. Just the low hum of an amplifier, a crowd long gone, and one man sitting alone beneath a stage light. B.B. King, older now, his eyes half closed. The interviewer asks something ordinary, a question he's been asked 1,000 times before. What did you really think of Elvis Presley? B.B. exhales slowly. Then, with a small knowing smile, he says, "You want the truth about Elvis?" Most folks couldn't handle it. The room stills. He leans forward, his voice rough with time but steady, carrying that southern weight of memory. That boy, he had something in him, something I didn't see in any other white singer back then. It wasn't just the way he sang, it was the way he listened. And suddenly, we're not in that quiet interview anymore. We're back on Beale Street, 1952. The air is thick with cigarette smoke, and neon light. BB's band is sweating through another midnight set at Club Handy. Guitars crying over the chatter of voices and clinking glasses. Outside, the streets are segregated, one side for black folks, one for white. But inside, the blues don't care about lines. BB notices a kid hanging by the doorway, half in the shadows. Hair slicked, clothes worn, eyes wide like he's staring into heaven. He looks out of place, too white, too young, but he's not leaving. He's listening. Every bend of the guitar string, every breath between the words. When the set ends, that kid doesn't run. He waits, walks up to BB, awkward but brave. "Sir," he says, "I don't want to steal it. I just want to feel it." BB laughs, remembering. That was Elvis Aaron Presley, skinny kid from Tupelo, polite as could be, and honest too. I could tell he meant it. From that moment, BB kept an eye on him. He'd see Elvis hanging around Beale Street after shifts at Crown Electric, sitting outside clubs he couldn't even walk into, humming along to music that wasn't supposed to be his. The city was changing, but the rules weren't. White boys didn't go chasing the blues. Yet Elvis did. Not to copy it, BB swore that to his dying day, but to live it. Years later, BB would tell friends, he didn't talk about race. He talked about sound. He wanted to know why it felt the way it did. And when BB played him a slow blues progression one night, Elvis just closed his eyes, nodding like he'd found something he'd lost. But with that admiration came risk. The world outside those clubs didn't see respect. They saw betrayal. People whispered that Elvis was crossing lines no one wanted. Crossed. BB knew it, and so did Elvis. Still, he kept coming back. He'd sit by the stage, tapping his foot, soaking in every note. BB's voice softens as he recalls it. He was hungry for the truth in the music. That's what most folks never understood. He didn't want to be king of anything. He wanted to be real. Then he pauses. The interviewer waits, sensing there's more. BB glances down at his hands. "You know what hurt?" he says quietly, watching what that hunger did to him. He remembers the first time he heard Elvis on the radio. It was "That's All Right," a sound that didn't fit into any box. "That was our Memphis," BB said. "That was the sound of the street, where the rich and the poor, black and white, church and juke joint, all crashed into each other." Elvis carried that mess in his voice. That's why it hit people so hard. But there's an edge in his tone now. The same people who shut their doors on us opened their wallets for him, and I saw what that did to him too. He leans back, eyes distant. Elvis wasn't built for hate. He felt it all too deep. A long pause. Then BB says the words that pull the breath from the room. Years later, I saw him again, and I knew he was gone long before he died. The interviewer asks what he means, but BB just shakes his head. You'll understand when you hear the rest, he says. I kept quiet for years because the truth don't always help a man rest. But maybe it's time folks knew what really happened between us, what it cost him to love the blues the way he did. He smiles faintly, that same soft, mournful smile that could turn a heartbreak into a hymn. That boy, BB murmurs, had a soul too big for one lifetime. And with that, the first curtain falls, not on the myth of Elvis Presley, but on the beginning of B.B. King's confession, the one he never meant to make. Memphis was splitting at the seams. Race, music, money, pride. Everyone could feel something coming, but no one knew from where. B.B. King had been touring juke joints and radio halls for years by then, and he'd seen plenty of young musicians try to imitate the blues. But when Elvis Presley's name started circling through town, BB said something no one expected. That boy's different, he told his band. He listens before he plays. It wasn't just flattery. BB had watched how Elvis soaked up sound, how he stood in the corner of WDIA, the all-black radio station, eyes closed as the record spun. He wasn't stealing riffs. He was studying spirit. BB knew what that meant because he'd done the same thing when he was young, listening through church doors, trying to catch the rhythm of a world he didn't yet belong to. When Elvis cut That's All Right at Sun Records, BB was one of the first to hear it on the radio. He remembered pulling over on the highway, thinking, that's it. That's Beale Street, all tangled up in one voice. The grit of the Delta, the sanctified cry of gospel, the swing of country, it was all there. BB smiled, but part of him hurt too. He knew the sound came from pain, and fame had a way of turning pain into property. The record exploded overnight. Suddenly, the same people who once called BB's music race records were losing their minds over a white boy who sounded like them. Critics said, Elvis invented rock and roll. BB laughed at that. Elvis didn't invent the blues, he'd say. He introduced it. But not everyone saw it that way. As Elvis rose, newspapers sharpened their knives. They accused him of stealing black music. They called him a thief, a copycat, a cultural trespasser, and BB, standing in the middle, felt the heat from both sides. He remembered one night in '56 at a small after-hours club near Union Avenue. Elvis slipped in quietly, wearing a cap pulled low, while BB was on stage. After the set, Elvis walked up shyly and said, "Mr. King, I just wanted to shake your hand." BB laughed, saying, "Boy, you don't call me Mr. You're the big star now." But Elvis shook his head. "No, sir. You opened the door." That moment stayed with BB. He could tell the fame hadn't changed Elvis's heart, just the world around him. The record executives, the promoters, the money men, they saw a product, not a person, and BB knew that look all too well. The business, he'd later say, it'll squeeze the soul right out of you if you let it. As Elvis's fame grew, the city that raised them both started to divide even deeper. White fans claimed Elvis as their own. Black musicians watched in silence, unsure if they were being honored or erased. BB defended him again and again, even when it made him unpopular. "Don't blame the boy," he told one reporter. "He loved the blues before it was safe to love the blues." Behind the scenes, the two men stayed in touch. When Elvis returned to Memphis in '57, he called BB to invite him to Graceland. They sat for hours in the music room, trading stories about the old Beale Street days. BB said Elvis kept asking questions. How to make a song breathe, how to control the crowd without losing yourself in it. He wanted to know the difference between noise and feeling, BB said, and that's the one thing you can't fake. But BB could see the cost written across Elvis's face. The eyes were tired. The smile didn't reach as far. The machine was moving faster than the man. BB tried to warn him. They'll sell you your own soul if you let them. Elvis just nodded. I know, he said quietly. But if I stop now, I'll lose everything. BB never forgot that. He'd tell friends later that Elvis wasn't corrupted by greed. He was consumed by gratitude. He thought he owed the world too much, BB said. That's how good men get lost. Years rolled on, and the distance grew. Elvis was swallowed by Hollywood, Vegas, and the glare of fame. BB stayed on the road, still playing the blues to crowds half the size but twice as loud. And yet, every now and then, he'd hear Elvis's voice come over the radio, singing a gospel tune, and smile. Elvis hugged him like a brother, then sat down, breathing heavy. For a while, neither said much. Then Elvis spoke first. You still happy, BB? BB laughed it off. Man, I play the blues for a living. Nobody happy in this business. But Elvis shook his head. No, you are. You still you. BB asked what he meant, and Elvis looked at the floor. I can't even hear myself anymore. Everyone around me says I'm the king, but I don't feel like a man no more, just a brand name. Those words haunted BB for years. He said he felt like a guest in his own soul, BB remembered. And that hit me hard, because I'd been close to that edge myself. When the stage lights go out and the noise dies, you're left with silence. And silence can sound like hell when you don't recognize your own voice. They sat there, two men from the same dirt, both shaped by the same music, one worshipped, one working. BB tried to lighten it. Well, King, you still sing like heaven? That's something. Elvis smiled faintly. You're still free, BB, he said. Don't ever trade that. Not for nobody. BB never forgot that sentence. The next morning, he left town early. He couldn't shake the image of Elvis sitting there alone, surrounded by gold, drowning in noise. He didn't need another hit song, BB said years later. He needed a friend who wasn't on payroll. When news came of Elvis's death, 3 years later, BB was performing in Chicago. Someone whispered the news between sets. He froze mid-note. I couldn't play another song, he said, because I knew he'd been dying long before his heart stopped beating. In the months that followed, reporters came to BB for quotes. They wanted a soundbite, a headline. He turned them all away. But privately, he carried the guilt of surviving what Elvis couldn't. We both came from nothing, he said. We both climbed out of the same red dirt. But I had the blues to bleed it out of me. Elvis didn't. He had fame. And fame don't heal. It hides. For years, BB kept that truth buried, afraid people would twist it. But when he finally told it, he called it a confession, not a revelation. I wasn't trying to defend him, he said. I was trying to forgive myself for watching him fall. He paused, his voice trembling just enough to show the weight of it. Elvis never betrayed the blues. He carried it until it broke him. And that's something I'll never forget. He looked straight ahead, eyes wet but unashamed. They called him the king, but the crown was too heavy. Sometimes I wonder if he'd still be here, if he'd learned to let it go. Then BB said something the interviewer never expected. If you ask me what killed Elvis Presley, I'll tell you plain. It was love. Love with no peace in it. The room stayed silent for a long time after that, and when BB finally rose from his chair, the air felt heavy, like the truth had been waiting decades just to be spoken out loud. That was the confession, the one BB King had carried in his chest for half his life. And though it broke the hearts of everyone who heard it, it also made something clear. Elvis Presley didn't just sing the blues, he lived them. It was 2008, and BB King was on stage in Mississippi, his home soil, under a warm southern night. The crowd had come for the same thing they always came for, that sound, that ache that lived inside his guitar. But somewhere in the middle of his set, he stopped playing. He didn't plan to. The words just came. He looked out across the crowd, his voice quieter than usual, and said, "I want to tell y'all something about my friend, Elvis Presley." The audience went still. Some clapped, expecting a quick story, a memory, but BB didn't smile. His tone was soft, reverent, and heavy with truth. "Elvis didn't just borrow from us," he said. "He believed in us. He carried our music, our struggle, our prayers. And I watched the world take it from him, piece by piece, till there was nothing left but the crown they gave him." You could hear the breath leave the crowd. No one had ever heard BB talk about Elvis like this before. The moment spread online in days. Clips titled, "BB King Breaks Down Talking About Elvis," the confession that shocked blues fans. But to BB, it wasn't about shock. It was about setting something right before his own time ran out. He told them about the nights on Beale Street, how Elvis used to stand in the shadows, soaking in the rhythm, how he asked questions no white boy was supposed to ask in 1953. Questions about soul, sorrow, and truth. He didn't want to sound black, BB said. He wanted to sound human. There's a difference. Then his voice cracked. People called him a thief, but they never saw the way he looked at this music. The man loved it enough to die for it. And I guess maybe he did. The audience was silent. No applause, no noise, just people listening to something raw and holy. BB went on, saying he'd spent decades protecting that truth because the world loved the story of Elvis, the legend, more than the story of Elvis, the man. They needed a king, he said, but he needed grace. He paused, eyes closed, breathing deep. Then, almost in a whisper, "I loved him. Not for his fame, for his fight." Those who were there that night said you could feel something shift in the air, as if the weight of years had finally lifted off both men. BB started to play again, slow and mournful, each note like a prayer for someone who'd never found peace. Afterward, he told a friend backstage, "That was the last thing I needed to say about him. I owed him that much." For BB, that confession wasn't about defending Elvis's reputation. It was about confessing his own silence, the guilt of watching a brother in spirit drown in a sea of adoration and loneliness. "He wasn't my rival," BB told a journalist later. "He was my reflection in another skin." He admitted he used to dream about Elvis sometimes, standing on stage again, young, alive, laughing, calling out, "Let's play one more, BB." And in the dream, BB always said the same thing. "You finally came home, didn't you?" When people asked why he called it a confession, BB would just smile and say, "Because I kept his truth to myself too long." That night became one of the last great moments of his career, not for the song he played, but for the silence that followed. In that silence, people finally heard what BB had been trying to say for years. Elvis Presley wasn't just the king of rock and roll. He was a man who spent his whole life trying to find the blues inside himself. and never stopped searching, even when it broke him. BB said it best, his final words on the subject, spoken with a trembling laugh. They talk about fame like it's freedom, but the blues, that's the real freedom. Elvis knew that. He just couldn't hold on to it. Then he lifted Lucille, smiled through the pain, and began to play again. Slow, soulful, every note dripping with forgiveness. And somewhere in that crowd, you could almost feel Elvis listening too. Because for B.B. King, that confession wasn't just about Elvis Presley. It was about love, redemption, and the music that outlives us all. Some truths aren't meant to defend, they're meant to heal. B.B. King's final words gave Elvis something he never had in life: peace. If this story touched you, share it. Subscribe for more untold legacies, where behind every legend lies a confession the world was never meant to forget.